Welcome back to the Grand Solar Minimum channel. Today is Tuesday, June 4th. How's everybody doing today? Hopefully everyone had a great weekend. And let's get started into some Grand Solar Minimum news. First, we'll start over here at thegrandsolarminimum.com. Check out where Mari has taken the time to lay out all the articles for you guys tonight in links, and there's our buddy right there. Let's take a look at our solar wind speed, sitting at 344.2 kilometers per second with a density of 5.8. We have 0 sunspots. That's 16 days in a row now without a sunspot, giving us 90 for 2019. That's 58% of the year so far without a sunspot. And we'll go to the space weather section here at the grandsolarminimum.com. Let's take a look at our planetary alignment right now. Kind of see where everybody is. And proton flux, low, KP indices in the 2s. Nothing really to speak of. Let's go take a look at the SDO in motion. We thought, well, we might have had some bright regions turn into some sunspot activity. That has not happened. Those are not sunspots. I believe it would be something along the lines of Phallica. So just some bright areas on the sun. And with that being said, guys, we are definitely in solar minimum-like conditions. These two areas that we're looking at here are not considered sunspots. And therefore, right now, as it stands, we don't have any activity that appears to be coming around the eastern limb of our sun. Although we will keep an eye on this, but guys, this is typical solar minimum stuff right here. We are looking at low solar wind speeds, almost inactive on the coronal hole side. We haven't had any kind of eruption or a class flare at all in the last 16 days. So again, typical solar minimum activity right now in the sun. And here's our TSI. We do have some missing data. But right now, 1360.70. Now, I want to mention something here. I'm not going to get into who. I'm sure those of you who follow us, that you know there are channels out there who criticize what we are teaching here at the Grand Solar Minimum channel. And one thing I want to point out real quick is the TSI and the trend and where it's been since 2014. Obviously, solar max, and we started coming down out of that. We got our peak right around here in our atmospheric temperatures. But notice the steady decline of TSI. And you could really see this by looking at the space between the TSI readings and this top line that represents the top of the graph. And as you can see, guys, we have done nothing but decline since 2014. Now, the reason why I'm bringing this up is that I actually heard a channel that rivals us agreeing that the trend of TSI is going down and continues that way. And not only that, but he also throws in the comment that TSI helps cool the planet. Are we seeing a possibility of change of heart when it comes to science? And finally, people are understanding where we're coming from when it comes to this topic. I don't know, but I was shocked to see it. It was a channel that was you could say a rival, I guess, but they've disagreed with us many times, and finally admitting some truth and informing his public that TSI is dropping, and that is also contributing to cooling. So just interesting stuff there. All right, let's get right with it here, guys. Strong eruptions at Mexico's Popocatépetl, volcano ash plume, 37,000 feet. Strong eruptions took place at Mexico's Popocatépetl volcano at 1447 UTC on June 3rd, 2019, producing an ash column up to 37,000 feet above sea level. The alert remains at yellow, phase 2, middle on a 3-color scale. And here is tons of footage here. This is actually footage here with the Watchers logo on it. Here we have the ash plume. There's the second eruption, and that's where we see ash. Now, this is a great shot. I'll go ahead and replay this. Just gives you an idea of, this is not an amazing volcano eruption here. 37,000 feet is quite, it's big, but Nothing to the point where it's going to affect climate all over the world. But what I find fascinating here is just in this little bit of plume here, you can see where this sun is being blocked out by all of the ash plume that's coming from this particular location. So imagine all of these major volcanoes going off, and we're going to talk about a couple more, but tonight I wanted to throw a couple volcano stories in just because we have seen a few here recently, and I'll just scroll down and skip ahead a little bit. Eruption at Mount Merapi, estimated volume lava dome is 458,000 cubic meters in Indonesia. Now this eruption was only about 12,000, close to 13,000 at some point. This also went off on June 3rd, 2019. By June 1st, the volcano had emitted 72 ash columns from its crater since it entered a new effusive eruption phase on January 29th, 2019. Residents are warned to remain outside the 1.6 miles exclusion zone. Now, so we've got Merapi firing up. We've got Popocatépetl, Papa Cap in your ass.
What?
But this other I'm just saying.
Fired.
I'm sorry. So we've had some strong eruptions lately. Agung, Cinnabung, and now Popocatépetl volcano here in Mexico. Do not need the peanut gallery's comment. So,
sorry.
So just do your job and I'll do mine.
Just pushing it to be the best you can be, Jake.
Just do your job and I'll do mine. That's where we're going to go with that. I'm just kidding, folks. All right, so back to the news at hand. 6.1 earthquake. Again, reporting on this because it is space weather related. A deep earthquake registered by the JMA. 6.1 hit the Izu Islands region, Japan at 4:39 UTC on June 4th. The agency reporting a depth of 273 miles. The earthquake can have low humanitarian impact based on the magnitude and affected population and their vulnerability. This is just a basic write-up of the area of where this earthquake. We have no tsunami reports or anything like that. Before we go any further, I want to say a quick hello to some of you out there. Grant, it's been a long time. Good to see you out there. Pete, Matt Bros. Matt is keeping very close contact with me relating to the farm conditions out there in Nebraska. Ian, I saw you in here kind of tearing through some things. Thor, good to see you tonight as well. I'm not in the chat a lot, so I do see some of you that are frequent visitors. I'm sure I'm forgetting a bunch more. Mari is one that keeps better tabs on the chat, but I wanted to say hello real quick while we were doing this live feed. So, all right, got that out of the way. And let's continue to move on as we have more grand solar minimum news to report on. So, and I'll kind of touch base with this here in a little bit too, but let's talk about some weather in Queensland, Australia. Severe weather, including rare snowfall, reported in Queensland. A deepening Tasman low combined with a strong high in Great Australian Bight, bringing windy and cold conditions to New South Wales and Queensland, Australia, June 3rd, once again, 2019. A rare occurrence of snow was reported near the New South Wales and Queensland border at Yuki, just south of Stanthorpe. Severe weather warnings were issued at about 620-mile stretch of the coast, including Sydney, New South Wales, and people urged to stay indoors amid heavy rain and gale force winds. Near freezing temperatures and snowfall were reported in Yuki, just south of Stanthorpe. This is near New South Wales and Queensland border, about 136 miles southwest of Brisbane. And of course, the media, social media, Twitter, everyone talking about this. This is rare. While snow is rare in Queensland, it does happen from time to time, mostly near the border. The last significant snowfall was back in 2015. Snowfall in Queensland, driven by colder air from the south, was an unusual occurrence in a state with subtropical to tropical climate. But in the south of the state, particularly near the New South Wales border, it's quite mountainous, and in the elevated areas, it can get quite cold. BOM reported a very cold morning across the Darling Downs and Granite Belt of Queensland, with a few new May records set on the 31st. Stanthorpe registered at 19.5 degrees Fahrenheit. Applethorpe registered at 21 degrees Fahrenheit. Oakley came in at 24 degrees. Dalby at 25.5. Warwick at 23.1 degrees. These are all Fahrenheit. Close to its 22.4 record set in 1965. Now, this area was just described as a subtropical to tropical climate. And we're seeing, in my opinion, 19 degrees is pretty freaking cold for these folks here. And yes, it does happen. It does happen from time to time. But just another talking note here for what we have in store tonight. Because I've got some things to talk about here later that are very ironic, that deal with a guy, let's just say we all know and love him very well. We'll get to that here very, very, very soon. All right, let's move right along. Lake Ontario sets new water level here, guys. Lake Ontario daily average water level rose to a record high of 248.98 feet above sea level on May 31st, 2019, breaking the previous record not only by a little bit, 248.95 feet, but the level is expected to rise in coming weeks. The record high water has inundated some low-lying properties, even in calm water, but the worst flooding occurs when winds generate larger waves over top and destroy shoreline protective structures and flooding adjoining property. The current water level is about 32.28 inches above average for this time of year. That's quite substantial. Toronto officials announced last week that the lake had hit the 249.44 feet above sea level, the highest point of its recorded history. The lake hit unprecedented highs in the spring and the summers of 2017, and that's ironic to mention as well. That's when we started seeing the increasing amounts of cosmic rays entering our atmosphere. That's when we started to see the uptick in this kind of situation. But back then in 2017, we weren't talking about it on a widespread level like we are right now. It was a very few occurrences of the areas of the world that were experiencing this. Yet did we know that that was the tip of the iceberg. But it says, reading on here, official damage total was not calculated, but it was estimated to cost more than $200 million or more in 2017. Waves and winds are wreaking havoc again this spring. The worst event so far occurred on May 28th when northeast winds generated waves of 2 to 3 feet. A flood outlook issued by the Hamilton Conservation Authority on June 1st points to record inflows from Lake Erie and ongoing flooding in the St. Lawrence River as two factors behind the high water levels, CBS News said. In on itself, the peak lake levels are not expected to cause significant shoreline flooding hazards, although continued localized flooding of the areas previously mentioned is expected. So, again, just another part of the world that we're experiencing flooding, lakes, rivers, creeks, you name it. Right now, Mother Nature is not being prejudiced on anywhere. Canada, United States, Mexico, Chile, Japan, China, Indonesia, India, Africa, Italy, France, Greece, Australia. I mean, these are all areas that have had headline news of their climate, the situation of it. That's quite a bit of area to cover there, folks. But, you know, just remember, it's all global warming, like old Al said. Historically delayed planting season, commodity prices rising in the U.S. This article came out on June 1st. Catastrophic floods affecting the United States since March 2019 are resulting in what experts are calling historically delayed planting season. The situation is already having a big impact on commodity prices, but the full extent will be known by the end of the year into 2020 planting season. This article gives a good wrap up. From January to early March, average temperatures in the Midwest remain 20 to 30 degrees. That's within range, with record snowfall in many areas, including an early March blizzard, which dumped around 3 feet in some areas. Temperatures rose to about 60 degrees from March 11th to the 13th, and combined with the 1.5 inches of rain to quickly melt the snow, caused unprecedented runoff into local streams and rivers. That's how this all got started. Many of the rivers were still frozen with a thick layer of ice, which the powerful flow of water broke up and dislodged, creating massive chunks of ice that traveled downstream, acting like a plow. Those are being called, what we have is called ice jams. And we saw those firsthand.
Us now from Arkansas. So, Manny, let's talk.
So I'm not going to like play the audio of this, but I will play this video here for a minute, just to guys kind of give you guys an idea of the mainstream picking up on their coverage. CBS News here reporting on the floods down south. The Weather Channel all day today, and I had quite some time today to look at a few reports, but all day, every time I tune in, they were talking about the floods. Sunday, while watching a couple of TV programs with Mari, we saw anywhere from 4 to 5 different kinds of flood insurance or flood-related commercials. It's becoming relevant now that the mainstream media is starting to talk about what's happening across the country. Now, of course, they're not blaming natural cycles or anything like that. It's all still our fault. And I have a feeling that this is part of the fear tactic of why they are trying to push the Green New Deal. And that to me seems like the motivation why mainstream media is showing us these pictures, because again, I could be wrong. I hope I'm wrong, but I feel like they're showing us these pictures because we see all these Democrats in office trying to push these new climate deals. And if the public is not paying attention to this on a daily basis, like most of you are, they're going to see these images coming from networks like CBS and Weather Channel and others who push man-made global warming. And they're going to think this is all linked together. But I have to give the mainstream media a little credit. At least they're talking about it now. But the problem with this is that they're talking about it now. And this has been going on for quite some time. Some areas have been flooding like this since January. Today, the $19 billion disaster bill that was passed through Congress is now awaiting action from the Senate to pass it along to the president to sign, which I'm sure he will at this point. But if I'm not mistaken, there was about an $18.1 billion relief bill that was still on the books waiting to be released for 2018's disaster bill. I mean, I hope that one has been taken care of and that this is a new $19 billion bill. But I have a bad feeling, and somebody in the chat, maybe you can help me with this because I didn't have a lot of time to look into this. The Weather Channel was trying to talk politics, basically, about this bill. Let me ask the chat right now. Can you guys tell me out there, this $19.1 billion bill that was passed today by Congress, is this current for 2019, or is this still from last year's bill and we're not even done with 2019 as far as how much we need to help with the recovery right now? I will say this: relief is needed immediately for farmers across the country right now for this year as well, if they haven't received anything for 2018. 2019 has been, in my opinion, a worse situation with the crops than we probably have ever seen since we started this channel. So nonetheless, $19 billion, and to me, if that is for this year, keep that in mind, folks. This is only a running tally from March until June 1st. This isn't counting what we still have to go through right now, which, you know, hurricane seasons officially started on June 1st. We're watching Invest 91 right now as we're speaking. And Mari and I both do a little bit of research from time to time. Mari does a lot of it. And Mari reminded me, like I have read once as well, but she freshly was looking at something where hurricanes, and I just went over this too a couple weeks ago, but the hurricane season is not expected to be as active, say, as we are looking at the tornado season so far. And there's a little bit difference as far as how those systems are formed, obviously. But the number one thing that we've talked about before with hurricane season during El Nino is that there's more wind shear present during El Nino season. So with wind shear, that sometimes pretty much breaks up these low pressure systems and turns them into tropical depressions. They don't quite, properly get going. I think we're already seeing that right now too, and I'll show you guys here in a little bit. Invest 91 is actually moving north right now as we speak, affecting Houston. Really, the areas that we have to watch out right now are going to be the outer coast of Texas and going into Beaumont, Texas as well, and heading towards Louisiana, as heavy rain is already moving across the coast in the Gulf. But just some more acknowledgement that we are having catastrophic flooding. Planting season is basically being delayed, calling it historically delayed planting season. Today is June 4th. From my understanding, we have until June 8th to get the corn in the fields. June 8th. We have 4 days. And right now, I don't see how some of these areas are going to be dry enough to get corn in the ground. I could be wrong. And I'll show you the GFS here in a little bit. We'll talk more about what kind of moisture we can expect in the coming days. So, but still lots more to go over. Guys, don't go anywhere. We're going to take a quick break. Be right back.
Do you like this show? Give us a thumbs up. Want to support us more? Share to your favorite social media platform. Buy a t-shirt or become a Patreon. All links are in the description below.
So there's our buddy. And he went to Australia, by the way. And what's awesome is that he went to Australia to preach about global warming. Here's an article talking about how much money was spent. Australian government pays Al Gore $320,000 to conduct climate training as a rare snowfall hits. Now, how, somebody woke up that morning, looked out the window, the person who was responsible for cutting that check, and he looks and he sees snow flurries falling. And he's got to be thinking to himself, what is going on? Here we have Mr. Gore coming to Australia to train people. A gentleman who once told us that our children's children won't see snow. That our children probably won't see much snowfall past 2013. Here in 2019, we broke records with Northern Hemisphere snow mass. Unprecedented snows, off the charts. Now we're talking about a rare snowfall to hit Queensland, Australia. Al Gore is in Australia to train 1,000 useful idiots, it says here at Mark Morano's Climate Depot. I love this guy. Basically, the man with no climate science expertise and huge vested interest is being paid by taxpayers to train people to chant consensus and pretend that wind and solar can stop storms and hold back the tide. These obedient fools help to destroy any conversation about science by reciting anti-science bumper stickers like "the science is settled," "gravity is real," and "tobacco, tobacco, tobacco." Because, hey, the tobacco industry funded merchants of doubt, and they were wrong. So therefore, ergo propter upchuck, all government scientists are right on everything, all of the time, and you are an idiot denier. Now, a little bit of good news for us folk here at the Grand Solar Minimum channel. There is a couple of reports out there that are talking about President Trump set to review the climate science and the processes and the theory of CO2. And I skimmed the article. I didn't get real deep into it, but I did see that our good friend John Christie over there at the University of Alabama, Huntsville, is going to be part of this climate science review. Now, for those of you who follow this channel, you know that we follow a lot of the work of Roy Spencer, and John Christie works side by side with Mr. Spencer on this. John Christie and Spencer. So to hear that John Christie is going to have a part in the climate science already makes me delighted, because this isn't about politics here. In fact, Dr. Roy Spencer is probably the most neutral person as far as politics go when it comes to climate science. So he doesn't have a political agenda. He's just here to unveil the truth. Now, here is a double-headed dragon right here. I want to mention this first. All right, Earth's carbon dioxide has jumped to the highest levels in human history. I'm not going to read everything, but I want to read a couple of parts here, guys. Where is it at? Oh, why it matters. Carbon dioxide is the most long-lived greenhouse gas, with a single molecule lasting in the air for hundreds to around thousands of years. The continued buildup of carbon dioxide due to human activities such as burning fossil fuels for energy is driving climate temperatures up and instigating harmful impact worldwide. Okay, so here's a couple things I want to pick on with this article already. We're talking about carbon dioxide being really present right now, building up. In fact, this article is trying to picture or make you picture that CO2 is being trapped in our Earth's atmosphere, and it's causing us to heat up. Two problems with that statement. The first problem is the buildup of CO2. Too many reports from NASA saying that CO2 is greening the planet. There are large amounts of nitrogen in the atmosphere and the bedrock. And when you're talking about CO2 levels being as high they are right now, well, the mixture of large amounts of nitrogen allow plants to absorb more CO2. And I think a lot of you guys last year saw this, and maybe some of you in parts of the country that aren't getting flooded out right now, but the CO2 is noticeable because last year's plants in front of our house were amazingly green, bloomed, huge flowers. I mean, just growth that we had never seen before. So to me, I think it's starting to become relevant that CO2 is definitely present in our atmosphere. But what it's doing to our planet and what these articles say are two different things. So this article says, though, there's a buildup of carbon dioxide. But the science over here on our side says that the nitrogen levels are higher in the bedrock and the atmosphere, which allow plants to absorb more CO2. So that to me means that CO2 is strengthening plants, trees, whatever. And those of you who are not underwater, you can clearly see that right now. Some of you have mowed your lawn several times since April. And a lot of that has to do with the high amounts of carbon dioxide in our atmosphere. Now, let's take a look at this graph. Right now, as of today, we are, well, actually this is for June 3rd. Everything here is June 3rd. Look at that. It's off the charts. Unbelievable. An all-time history, human history here. It's off the charts. All right, so what does that mean? Obviously, in my opinion, if this chart would go back tens of thousands of years, we would see, oh, this is in the hundreds of thousands of years. So, but maybe when they talk about 3 million years of our history of ice cores, that this has been higher. I'd like to see that 3 million year timeline all the way back. But nevertheless, here we are currently. That's where we are. That line is no joke. It's going over the 400 parts per million. We're sitting at 414.75 parts per million. That's the highest ever. Okay? In 2016, we were sitting at 402 parts per million. And let me show you that real quick, because that's right here at my fingertips as well. And this is relevant why I'm showing you guys this. So bear with me just for a brief moment here. But the reason why I'm mentioning this is when we were talking about, okay, I'll just go ahead and show you this one here. This is from 2015. This was right during a maximum, okay? So here we have, basically a chart from March 9th of 2015. Now notice that the CO2 is at 401.84 parts per million. And let's go back here to Dr. Roy Spencer. I want to point this out, guys. This is important. So let's zoom this in real quick so we can get a good look. Right here, what I'm showing you, here's the years down at the bottom. So we're focusing in on 2016, which is right here with our peak. And I know I showed this a lot. But here, we're looking at 2016, 2015. Our CO2 is at 302 parts per million. Right there. This is 2015. So it's still lower in 2015. And we peaked that year. The temperature peaked out at 0.88 degrees Celsius above baseline. Today, I just showed you an article that claims we are at record levels. And here's where our average temperature is right now. It is 0.32 degrees Celsius above baseline. It dropped 0.12 degrees Celsius from April to May. All right. So we are at record level high CO2, and we have dropped over 50.56 degrees Celsius in just 3 years. Just a little over 3 years' time. So there's something wrong with this CO2 theory. There's something wrong with Al Gore, who is being paid $320,000 to go train some people about climate change. You're getting snow in Australia. We're at record level CO2, and we're cooler. And you don't have to be a meteorologist to figure it out for yourself, folks. Temperatures here in the Northeast, 60 degrees yesterday. Didn't get past 58. Hey, I get it. I'm in upstate New York. But it's still, the average temperature in May going into June is 79 degrees. Last night, we almost broke a record in low temperature. We had a frost advisory. June 3rd, frost advisory. I mowed grass today in a hoodie and a pair of jeans on June 4th. Sun was out, beautiful day. And usually when you get sunlight like what we had today, you got temperatures, mid 60s, low 70s. Didn't even get past 64 today. So we're obviously cooling all over the world, not just here. Other places are showing it too. Rare snow in Queensland, Australia. I get it. But subtropical states? Come on. When are we going to wake up? When is the mainstream going to wake up? And then you got this article floating around about how Trump's going to mess with the climate review. And all these mainstream media articles are basically calling Trump out, saying he's attacking climate change. He's attacking climate science. No, No, he's not attacking it. His advisors and the people that work for him are showing him what's happening around the world. And this chart here for Dr. Roy Spencer coming out 0.12 degrees Celsius cooler than last month. We didn't expect a jump in temperatures last month, but clearly we have seen some cooler temperatures throughout the country here in the month of May. Okay, and then also over in Europe, we saw 2 different times where we had cold blasts and snow in parts of Europe. Middle of May. Still reports of flurries flying around in upper elevation parts of the United States. It's June. And everything that we talked about tonight, the earthquakes, the volcanoes, all that's relevant to what we're talking about. One article, this article here, I'm leaving the link to, this one here, Earth's carbon dioxide, blah, blah, blah. It says that this is the reason why we're warming. But Ohio lawmakers have slashed renewable incentives and moved to support a coal and nuclear power with substantial support from state Democrats. Now, how about that? Ohio. Critics say the bill unnecessarily bails out nuclear, coal, and owner First Energy Solutions. This week, lawmakers in Ohio House of Representatives voted 53 to 43 in favor of a controversial bill that would permit a consumer-funded subsidy for nuclear plants and possibly ailing coal plants as well. The bill would also end Ohio's renewable portfolio standard, which required the state's utilities obtain 12.5% of their power from renewable sources by 2027. Instead, that renewable portfolio standard is replaced by smaller steps to bolster renewable power, but environmental groups says the bill is the step in a wrong direction. Building support among Democrats. Though the above elements were in the original bill, which was supported by a state Republican governor, the bill was amended early Wednesday to garner support from Ohio's House Democrats. Among the concessions, 6 large-scale solar projects already exist in Ohio and would be eligible to access some of the nuclear subsidy fund. Limits were also placed on how much First Energy could devalue its nuclear properties, a tactic the company could use to reduce its tax liability as well. Ultimately, these concessions got enough Democrats on board to pass the bill, especially those with nuclear plants in their district. The vote wasn't strictly partisan, though. Cleveland.com notes that one Republican congressman objected the lack of third-party audit of First Energy Solutions finances to make sure the company actually needs the subsidy, which oil and gas interests dispute. Oil and gas interests likely stand to lose the most from House Bill 6, since natural gas is the first fuel utilities often do turn to when a coal or nuclear plant is shut down. Queensland Coalition MPs push for inquiry to lift Australia's nuclear power ban. What does this say across the world? We talked about this not too long ago. Scott Morrison elected in Australia to lead their country, and he wants to lift the nuclear power ban. Ohio Republicans influence House Democrats to jump party line to support a bill that does not reduce emissions, that actually encourages coal and nuclear power. I think this is a huge win. Very impressive signal to me that with all this supposed support for the Green New Deal and the fact that a state like Ohio, now guys, Ohio, the weather there varies. The winters can get cold and snowy, but usually from Columbus southward, it's a relatively okay state. The winters aren't too bad. The snow's not too bad. The summers get really hot. So this kind of surprises me that a state that doesn't really experience that cold of winters, but they saw what happened this year. This year was a little steadier cold. This year was a little steadier snow. They've also looked at the stats. They've also looked at the numbers, and they know that solar and wind is not enough. to keep you warm during these insanely cold winter nights that we've seen, just like in 2018-19. We will also see those conditions continue to worsen throughout 2019 and 2020. And that's just stating from what we've already experienced. And Ian, I'm going to go ahead and vote no on the kitten on my head. Thank you for raising the issue, though, for a vote. Hopefully nobody else votes for that one. But, I'm watching you, Ian. Just kidding, but all right. Anyway, so let's move along here. So good sign here. Republicans sway some Democrats to see the light. Renewables in retreat. It sure seems that way here in Ohio, and places like Australia starting to lift their bans. And it's because they see all this crap in the news about CO2 at the Earth's highest levels of human mankind history. And then we look at charts like this, and we show cooling. And CO2 is higher than ever right now. Okay, you see it right here. Highest level in human history. But this graph shows us cooling over the last 3 years. Now, I know a lot of you out there don't like that I'm just cherry picking from 2016 to current. But a trend is a trend. And it's showing on the downfall right now, guys. And it's not done. And clearly you guys can see that on this trend. We've got tons of room before this continues to plunge. And like I said, this year, going into next year, it's definitely going to be interesting to continue to monitor and watch as we move forward towards the beginning of the next solar minimum and eventually the introduction to solar cycle 25. Guys, don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Do you like this show? Give us a thumbs up. Want to support us more? Share to your favorite social media platform. Buy a t-shirt or become a Patreon. All links are in the description below.
All right, we're back. GSM weather. Coldest June 4th in 55 years in Ottawa. We already talked about Ontario, now we're going to Ottawa. The unseasonably cool spring weather continues with new temperature records. Tuesday marks the coldest June 4th in Ottawa history. Temperature is at 3.5 degrees Celsius. That's 0.4 degrees colder than the previous record low set in 1964. See, folks, 0.4 degrees Celsius does mean a lot. That's pretty cold. That's a substantial amount of temperature decrease. And that's where we are right now with Dr. Roy Spencer. 0.52 degrees cooler than we were in 2016. And this record was broken from 1964. So this is a graduating situation where we see cooler temperatures return, but it took a lot longer. The average low for this time of year is 11 degrees Celsius. So that is quite a difference when you look at their all-time high and their averages. Definitely record cold temperatures. Just wanted to bring that up in our weather segment. Climate alarmists have been virtually wrong about everything. Yes. More information on Mr. Alford. 1975 Newsweek article entitled "The Cooling World," which claimed Earth's temperatures have been plunging for decades due to humanity's activities, opens as follows. And I'll let you guys, it's the same crap. We were causing cooling, now we're causing warming. Except this time the difference is that there's people who are available to reach you in a more efficient manner and educate you about what the crap is going on right now. Holden predicted that 1 billion people would die in a carbon dioxide induced famines as part of the new ice age by the year 2020. Odd enough that this individual here picked 2020. 1 billion people would die in a carbon dioxide induced famines. Now, so carbon dioxide is high right now. So that prediction is correct. 2020 is going to be the peak of our minimum. And when I mean peak, I mean the lowest activity from our sun at that time. So that's correct as far as cooler temperatures on the way. So just interesting to see someone who would probably agree with the majority of you that believe that we are right now beginning the grand solar minimum, if not a super grand solar minimum. which I have some exciting news to report on that, by the way. We are speaking with Valentina Zartkova herself in the near future, middle of June, somewhere between the 15th and the 20th of June is when we'll have some time to discuss her paper that is being peer-reviewed right now and is in the final stages. So we will finally be able to actually talk to Valentina and ask her questions so many people are speculating on, and we'll be able to get the actual clear explanation of what her report and her presentation was trying to decipher. But that's going to be here in just a couple of weeks. Very excited to have Dr. Zartkova once again a guest on our program, as Mari and her do keep in contact on a regular basis discussing various climate matters, and there is a lot to discuss. So we are excited about that. But, you know, climate alarmists have been wrong about everything. Now, this was back in 2017. Okay? And it couldn't be any truer as we talk about it in today's society in 2019. Nothing is happening that was being reported or predicted by these global warming climate alarmists. And right now, Al Gore just stole almost $500,000 to teach people about global warming, and the place that he's going to give the presentation is experiencing a rare snowstorm. Yeah. Money well spent there, Australia. And I'm not trying to insult the people of Australia. I'm insulting the government officials who thought this was a great investment of $320,000. All right, so let's go to tropical moisture will bring heavy rain, flooding to the southern plains and Mississippi Valley. Okay, so the pink is the heavy rain. Now, if you look back, we don't want to see this footage. That's great, Matthew McConaughey. It's actually not letting me pause the video. Oh, awesome. Let's go ahead and play it through because I want to show you this map real quick too, guys. So here we go. We'll just watch this instead. More heavy downpours are on the way in the southern plains and lower Mississippi Valley this week as tropical moisture streams northward from the Gulf of Mexico. An area of low pressure will move across the southern tier of the United States and pull in deep moisture from a tropical disturbance in the western Gulf. That's Invest 91, which, by the way, folks, we saw some pretty frightening looking models. Thankfully, a lot of that's not going to happen. But here's what's really troubling, and everybody's kind of like, oh, don't worry, it's not going to be that. But no, the areas that is in the darker green, Oklahoma City, you guys are already flooded. Parts of Missouri, parts of Arkansas, you're already flooded. And we talked about what happens when we deal with areas of saturated soil. It only takes about a ½ inch of rain in the areas that I'm talking about, Missouri, Arkansas, Oklahoma. You're only needing about a ½ inch of rain. You're forecasted to get around 3 inches or more. Parts along the southern coast of Texas and Louisiana are expected anywhere from 3 to 5, some localized of 5 to 8 inches of rain. Many locations of the central and southern plains of the Mississippi, Ohio valleys could see 1 to 3 inches of rain through late this week. Locally, up to 5 inches of rain is possible in areas where clusters of thunderstorms stall for several hours at a time. The National Weather Service has issued a flash flood watch for parts of the upper Texas and southwestern Louisiana coast, including Houston and Lake Charles, Louisiana, into Thursday. Additional flood watches could be issued for other areas where heavy rain is expected in the next couple of days. The system will also bring the threat of tornadoes and waterspouts along the Texas and Louisiana coast on Wednesday, just like a tropical system. These tornadoes or waterspouts should be short-lived, and they give a great general outlook of what's going to be happening weather-wise. This was probably the smallest detailed weather report that I've seen from weather.com in quite some time. But we were talking about where we thought this heaviest amount of rain was going to hit, and guys, it's not really that good. If you look at most areas along the Mississippi here and the Arkansas River, you're about to get hit with more rain. 1 to 3, 3 to 5 inches of rain. Areas that don't need any more rain. And somebody, look, I respect weather.com for using the IBM weather company to do their forecast. And by the way, they're pretty much the only weather channel out there that's been halfway accurate when it comes to cool temperatures being forecasted AccuWeather and NOAA was going to tell you for months that we were looking at temperatures that were going to be above average, and that didn't happen at all, not even close. So, but the one complaint I had today, I was watching the Weather Channel, and they were talking about how they have this engineer who is planning to move the Mississippi by creating channels that will dump river water into areas that rely on a balance of salt and fresh water. Basically, their fishing industry would disappear if they move the Mississippi River. The areas that they're talking about doing this, and I'll have to get a little bit more in depth. But man, you know, let's just focus on getting these people to safety. Let's help these people get their lives back. I think the idea of moving the Mississippi to help with flooding is one thing. But if it means destroying another economy after already what's been destroyed down there, I think we should pump the brakes on this and kind of, you know, take it easy and let's really think this through before we get some kind of radical plan that does more harm than good. Maybe it does protect against flooding, but what is it going to do to the fishing area down there for the crab? It doesn't. It's bad either way you look at it, guys, and that's the unfortunate part of what we're going through right now. This is part of the challenges of living through these grand solar minimums. And I'm telling you, I don't remember the weather reporting being this intense in 2008, 2009, 2010. So I do think we're already seeing a weaker solar cycle than many thought to begin with. And it's showing as far as cosmic rays increasing, the moisture increasing all over the world. Take a look at our GFS report. Moisture developing from Invest 91 continues to move north out of the Gulf. And this is tropical moisture, guys. So this is heavy downpours. We're talking some pretty decent soaking rains. And like I said, in areas that don't need it. Thursday, June 6th, most of Louisiana has been getting pummeled. There's that wave of moisture that keeps reloading in the atmosphere right here. This straight line, it seems to just reappear every 24 hours. As one system moves out, another one appears in the next 24 hours. And this is where that trend ends around the 6th and 7th. So we've been going through that for the past 6 days now, and it's finally coming to an end. Look at this. Oh boy. That's right, folks. It's June, and we have snow in Idaho, Wyoming, and parts of Montana, Alberta. Watch out, BC. But this stream of moisture is going to come across the country. Again, snow in higher elevations. This is according to the June 9th precipitation forecast. The South, you guys are going to get some moisture that's well needed. You had a long heat wave, and now, starting right now, today, you're going to be in for bouts of moisture over the next at least 4 to 8 days. June 10th, still in the Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, South Carolina. And this low pressure system slowly makes its way out to Georgia and the Carolinas and raking the East Coast by June 11th, all the way up into the Northeast, upstate New York, and the capital region. A low pressure system is forming almost like the same likes of a nor'easter. So a little bit different path, but still the same qualities what we would see of a nor'easter. So something to watch here on this storm on the 11th and 12th. And then another low pressure system that's going to rake the Carolinas and go up the East Coast once again. Now this one here really has its act together, folks. And yes, it does have the qualities and traits of what we would call a nor'easter, except it's June 13th. We'll take a look at the pressure maps here in just a minute, see what we got going on in Greenland. Friday the 14th, more moisture move into the Gulf, and then boom, right across Kansas. Norton, you're about 4 counties east of Colorado, very heavy rain. That's an area that hasn't been hit just as bad as the rest of Kansas. Nebraska near Kearney, again, more heavy rain across the area. This moves through Kansas City, Topeka, Wichita, on into Missouri and into Illinois by Sunday, June 16th. Again, guys, the point of showing the extended forecast, more rain across the south, more rain in the Atlantic states, more rain across the Central Plains and the Northern Plains. It just continues throughout the rest of the month of June. Thankfully, we don't have any more snow chances after it looks like the 9th. So June 9th is our real last chance of any kind of actual snowfall in higher elevations. But just amazing that we're even able to talk about a chance of snow somewhere in the United States. Now I wanted to look at this map around the 12th and the 11th of June and just take a look and see if we have any high pressure sitting up here. And at this point we do have high pressure present in this area, but it's not strong enough for this nor'easter to really get going. But here's my concern with this secondary area right here of low pressure heading up the coast. That high pressure does get pushed out of the way and put back in its place by the time this thing rakes up to the northeast. So very close conditions, guys, for nor'easter, except the high pressure system does move back to the middle Atlantic where it belongs this time of year. We're not supposed to have any kind of low pressure or high pressure sitting up near Greenland. So the good news is, according to the GFS, this high pressure system is going to sweep down into the middle Atlantic and pretty much park its ass right there for the next 2 weeks. So again,
What is this language, Jake?
you know, just some
Are you feisty?
I'm feisty tonight. This weather's crazy. And we don't see any, it's like every time I do a show, every other 2 or 3 days, you know, you'd think I would have something new to report, a different pattern change or something of that nature, but I don't. All I report on is floods, tornadoes, crop loss, cold temperatures. We've had floods. Also, I want to mention too, GFS, here's our total rain precipitation through June 20th. So the south, you're getting ready to get hit. And then there is a light orange, yellow area across Missouri and Kansas that doesn't need it, but you're going to get it. Parts of Illinois too, western Illinois. Temperatures. Texas, it's about to get really hot down there. I know you guys have seen some very abnormal cooler temperatures, but I wanted to start here at the 20th of June just to show you your summer is coming. And I believe it's going to be within the next couple of days, somewhere around the 11th of June. We'll really start to notice things heating up a little bit. Mid-80s right here, but as you move closer to the 12th, now we're starting to see some 90s. And then on the 13th, we will get even hotter across the southwest in the desert. In the upper 80s, the lower 90s, close to the Mexican-Texas border. By June 14th, it is full on summer for most of Texas. Temperatures in the mid-90s to the hundreds in the farmost southern regions, and then widespread 90s across Texas on the 14th of June. Also, let's keep an eye on the southeast. Once again, your temperatures start creeping back up into the 90s and close to the triple digits. And as we move through the middle part of June, still seeing some cooler temperatures across the northern plains and into the Midwest, Minnesota, Michigan. Very comfortable weather. Upstate New York, 61 for a high on June 17th. Good Lord. Meanwhile, while you're roasting down in Texas, still mid-60s in Syracuse, upper 50s in Minnesota. So not quite summer heat just yet, but that does continue to grow as we get closer towards the end of June. Across the northern plains, the central plains, starting to see 80s. And yes, folks, 87 degrees in North Dakota forecasted in parts of the northern plains. Even in the northeast, it's showing the capital region should be somewhere around 87 degrees for a high on June 20th. So buckle up for those of you who have experienced lousy spring so far, how cool it's been. That's going to change by the middle of June. I guarantee you we will not be complaining about cool temperatures anywhere in the United States at that point. But just wanted to point out too to Texas, you guys have had it pretty easy here for the most of the spring. And now it looks like your summer temperatures are going to return. And same thing with the South. So the South is going to just be awful. It's going to be muggy. It's going to be humid. It's going to be rainy. And it's going to be hot. So get ready for the ACs to be clicking on for 24/7 down here in the South. Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi, Louisiana, Texas, South Carolina, North Carolina, parts of Florida, and even parts of the Northeast could experience near 90-degree temperatures before July 1st. So what a roller coaster ride, folks. We've had winter just last all the way pretty much until early May. And now we're starting to see signs of just from winter. Some areas got a little bit of a spring. Now we're jumping right straight into summer. So the seasons are starting to blend in together a little bit more, and we're not getting that hard contrast of seasons, in my opinion. 2019 has been a mess. And up until now, it's been a cool mess. Wet, cool mess. Now it's going to be a hot mess for the rest of June. That's going to do it for me tonight. Mari, did you want to say hello to the folks out there in YouTube land?
We're going to spare turning the webcam on and putting the kitten on your shoulder or something, Jake.
We'll do that some other time.
Oh, goodness. Viewers, I had trouble following all the chat because I'm chasing 8-week-old kitten. She was behind the router like half the show.
Yeah, that would have been great.
The worst spot in the world to get knocked offline by a kitten. Anyway, Ian has been in the chat the whole night, and boy, it's been interesting. Thank you, Ian, for your colorful commentary. Now, I just don't get your distaste for Canada. We love Canada. So there. You know what? I had a viewer tell me to get back in the kitchen when I snarked at you about Popo Catabeto.
Well, I am thirsty.
Would you like a sandwich, Jake?
I'm kidding.
Let me go get you a sandwich. Just joking. Anyway, Grant, shout out to New Zealand. And Space Weather Monkey wants us to get some flood records before the new Madrid ruptured. So that would be interesting to look into. L. Oakham said Joe Biden said in an interview he wouldn't be surprised that the ice age comes so fast there'll be less than 10% of American people less. Have you ever heard that?
No, and I'll tell you something. If Joe does that, I think he's just committing political suicide. Nobody in his party right now is speaking along those dialogues.
Where that interview is referenced, I'd love to actually see that.
Brad said for you to get me a beer and a sandwich.
You people in the chat. Hey now, let me get in here. Well, anyway. People do care about Canada, Ian, so there.
Yeah.
I told Ian there's an interesting article, and the title is Return of England's Wildcats. Animals to be reintroduced after being declared extinct in the 19th century. So I shared the link in the chat. You guys just take a look for that. It's sort of interesting. Maybe I'll post it in the comment as well. We were having a laugh with that. I don't really have a whole lot. You guys are a pleasure in the chat. If you think that Al Gore meme is funny, we do have it on a t-shirt on our Teespring site. It's on the website.
Let's go
that image is linked to
Me
the
lie. So if you click on this, you can go order your own Al Gore Me Lie t-shirt. It's only available in black, folks. So sorry for all those people out there who like the green t-shirts. But you have 55 minutes to order. What is that timer for?
You know, I had a 20%.
Was there a discount on there?
Well, I had a 20% off code going, but it ended in May.
I think that now our viewership for the most part is conservative. Could you imagine going to a Trump rally and seeing people wearing this shirt littered in the crowd?
It's just funny.
I mean, they're gonna have climate change as the main fight of the political campaign. So.
I took great pleasure stretching his nose out.
I think Mr. Trump would appreciate these shirts.
I will renew that promo code another month, I think, Jake, since people are still asking me about it.
Awesome.
So. All right, you guys, thank you for joining us. Sorry for the snarky, bad-mouth behavior from Jake. It's just one of those days.
It's because this woman's in the background misbehaving
making
as well.
Fun of you.
Yep. And
Sorry,
chasing
Jake.
a cat around, nonetheless.
Well, it's the kitten, and I got cuts.
All right, guys, that's going to do it for us tonight. Thank you for tuning in to the Grand Solar Minimum channel for our Tuesday night edition update. We will go live again on Friday at 9 p.m. Eastern. We'll try to have a little bit longer of a show, probably a lot more to talk about as well. And I'm sure Mari will update you on any breaking news that happens during the rest of this week for Grand Solar Minimum News. That's going to do it for us tonight. Thank you for tuning in tonight, and we will talk soon.